So on today's Chatterbox podcast, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Tim Ankers from the Waste Group. Nice to see you, Tim. Thank you for coming in to join us today. So first of all, do you want to tell us a little bit about your business, the Waste Group, what you do?
So we are a skip hire and waste management company. We're based down in Dorset, and we have a couple of facilities down there. We basically got into self-storage via having a vacant bit of land that was sort of used as a car park and had been vacant for a number of years, probably 5 years. We tried to rent it out, never had much success. So we didn't know what to do with that land. And I've been listening to some other podcasts other than this one, and they discuss self-storage on that, and we're discussing how it works and all that. So discussed it with my sort of business partners about doing self-storage there. So we simply did some advertising on Google PPC just to see if there was any demand out there, if anyone would take up the call, so to speak.
Okay.
And one or two people sent us messages or leads that came in. And from there, we got in contact with yourselves, got our first container, and that's literally how it started.
Excellent. Okay. So you now have 3 sites.
Yeah.
So how have you found the expansion?
It's been challenging, but we obviously started with one site. That grew. That took about probably a year and a half before we had other sites.
Yeah.
And we got more containers, correct security in all the perimeter fencing, gates, security lights, CCTV. Got that up and running, sort of felt like we understood what we were doing there and how it's performing. So what we then did is opened up at our main office for our property company. We had some spare land there, and we kind of repeated the same model.
Yeah.
So it was kind of in a safe environment to do it. We didn't have to go and sort of rent a new bit of land or buy a bit of land. It was something we already owned, so it was kind of safe to do. But the third facility was actually, we acquired another skip company local to us. And again, that had some spare land. So we just sort of followed the old technique of doing a bit of advertising, seeing who was out there and if it would work. And we're only sort of 3 to 6 months in.
Yeah.
But we've already got 10 containers rented. So it's working there.
Yeah. So you mentioned obviously the seed that was planted as to how you actually got into considering embarking on the storage industry.
Yeah.
Listening to podcasts, etc. But what was that one thing that made you actually, how did you start?
It's basically a conversation with my cousin about this, this spare land. And I told him what I've heard.
Yeah.
So we were like, well, we could buy some containers. We could, set the premises up, spend lots of money doing it. But we like to keep costs to a minimum where we work. So we just came up with a plan with, was doing a landing page linked to Google PPC. A friend of mine, he runs an internet-based business doing appliance repair. And he kind of told me how to set up a landing page and link it to a PPC campaign. So I sort of, asked a friend for help. He helped. We set up this page. It was pretty basic. If I'm honest, it wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but it did give the message. We've got storage containers to rent at this location, at this price. After, I think it was about a week, we had our first inquiry.
Okay.
Which was great news because that first inquiry literally turned into our first rental.
So did you have
which we had to do at a discount as well to get them in, but which they've got a good price, should we say?
Good.
But that was the first one, which then enabled us to then, let's buy a second. Well, I think actually you might have persuaded me to buy 2 actually at the time.
Yeah,
so we went from 1 to 2 because actually you benefit.
More cost effective for delivery.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
So that's how it started.
Yeah. So when you actually got your first inquiry, did you not have any containers at that point?
Correct. Yeah. We'd made this advertisement obviously saying that we had the perfect self-storage facility, but probably wasn't the case. I was bending the truth a little, should we say, but we wanted to test the market. We wanted to see if there's anyone out there without having to spend lots of money.
Yes.
Like I said, setting up this landing page and the PPC campaign was probably a few £100 as opposed to spending thousands.
And do you think that's the best way for things to work in terms of when you get another inquiry, when you're getting almost full, then you buy another couple of containers rather than to start with buying a huge quantity and then trying to find people to fill them?
Yeah, I would definitely go with start with less because you can always buy more. And, as all businesses they need cash flow. So actually, you've got to get the money, unless you've got someone behind you with lots of money that's happy to shell out and spend all the money on all the fencing, the security, the gates, the containers. Especially when I started, if I bought them all at once, I'd have been paying the high price for the containers as well. So actually, over time, the prices come down.
Yeah.
So no, I would say, perhaps start with 1 or 5, maybe 10, I don't know. But if we were to do a new facility now, even another facility now, I'd still start with just 2. And that's what we do now. We still, every time, once we've only got 1 left, we order another 2 because you guys supply them so quickly as well. And we haven't had anyone yet who's literally stood there saying, I need it this second.
Yeah. Okay. So you first set up the storage business at the end of 2021.
That is correct,
yes.
as you've told me.
Yeah. So you have expanded quite quickly then.
We've been fortunate enough to go with the market. I mean, when we first started, I didn't realise how big or how quickly this would grow. It was just, we had empty land. We wanted to do something with it. And it's been a surprise about how much demand there actually is out there, especially in the locations we are. We're not in a major city or in a major town. Yeah. So it's been surprising.
And how do you manage this business alongside the other business?
Embarrassingly, it's in kind of an old-fashioned way, but when we first started, we had 1 or 2 containers, so it was run off an Excel spreadsheet. I'm accounts trained, so I did the invoicing for that, did the chasing of the payments and things like that. So it's been pretty simple, to say the least. But I think, I know going forward that will change soon.
Yeah, but it's all been very manual so far.
Yeah, everything's been manual, or we've had to learn as we go. I mean, we now know, speaking to you guys at Cleveland Containers, about automated systems that we could use. Yeah. From gate entry systems to, self-storage systems and software. So, there's a lot more that can be done, which I'm hoping to do very soon. Yeah.
So what do you do in terms of site security?
Okay, so all the sites, they are surrounded by palisade fencing and have electric gates where our customers have key fobs to get in. We also have CCTV and floodlighting. And sort of one of the added bonuses of sort of where these all our facilities are, they're next to our sort of waste facilities. So 6 days a week, people are all going to be there the whole time. And
what about in terms of staff? Because it is a family-run business, isn't it?
It is.
So is there just the family working in the business? Do you need to employ anyone?
Well, that's sort of been another surprise or a benefit of the storage business, is it doesn't need to be that many people employed compared to the waste business, the skip business. Yeah, you need a driver to go and drive the skips. You need people in the office. You need people in the yard when we bring the waste back, when we recycle it. Digger operatives, machine operatives, all that sort of stuff. With self-storage, I've almost been able to do it on my own. It's made it it's made it quite a lot easier because actually you get someone who wants to rent a container, and then once they rent it, there's not much else to do until they want to leave. Yeah. Or if there's a problem, which, luckily we haven't really had any problems to date.
Which is good.
Yeah, it's lucky.
So what would you say has worked particularly well for you then? Or has it just flowed easily? And
it's not been easy. I think it's the locations we are, there haven't been any competitors. So actually, for where we are, if people wanted self-storage, they've had to travel quite far. So actually, for us to bring these into those locations,
so location has been the thing.
We spent quite a bit of money on advertising. The old-fashioned advertising from flyer drops, local magazines, to now more Google, PPC and Facebook advertising. Yeah.
What are the challenges then that you've come across? Have there actually been any challenges?
There are challenging, there's challenges. One of them can be planning. That can be a slow and tortuous process.
Yeah, in terms of buying new land or...
We're just getting permission, the correct permission for self-storage. That can be a task, as I'm sure with all planning nowadays is very difficult. But so that can take time and that can stop you starting.
Yes.
When we first did it, we just put a container there and off we went and had to almost backtrack. But actually to do it correctly, that can take time and slow matters down. If we want to then move forward, it's looking for other locations, analysing, seeing competition, because one of our facilities is close to Bournemouth.
Right, okay.
And that's been the most challenging facility because of its proximity to a main town and the larger indoor self-storage facilities that are all around there, all the big sort of national companies.
Yeah. So you mentioned that one of the challenges is potentially planning permission. Can you give us an idea of some tips around getting planning permission approved successfully?
Yeah. Obviously having a good architect would be useful, but I think in our situations, we obviously had the site, so we had to just go with what we got. Yeah. But actually, I think in hindsight, you could look for locations or sites that already have permissions or potentially have relevant permissions that will make it easier to get your permission, because it can take time. But a good architect would be very helpful. They can tell you straight away what you need to do, what your likelihood of getting planning it and also how long it'll take.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say your customer base is like then? Who are your main customers?
Majority, 60 to 70% are householders.
Right.
And the remaining 30, 40% are business people.
Yeah. So it's mainly people perhaps moving.
Yeah, it's people moving homes. We've seen people moving from, further afields coming out to where we are, needing storage, temporary storage. And then there's people who are doing extensions or just not having enough space at home.
Yeah. And do you have many new builds around where you are or not really?
There's a few. It's not, again, we're out in the country, so there's not a lot, but most people it is the lack of storage from home.
Yeah.
So they're coming out to where we are and putting it in there and shutting the door and forgetting about it for a while.
Hopefully for quite a while.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So how did you discover Cleveland then? How did you come across us? Because obviously you've been a customer of ours for a couple of years now.
Yeah. I said about, listening to this podcast about self-storage, I did my research, went online, looked at the various sizes and just simply, Googled it, as I say. And you were one of the guys that came up highest. It was a professional website, professional team. You weren't the cheapest, but you weren't the most expensive.
Okay.
So buying the one container, I felt comfortable with that and haven't looked anywhere else since.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So obviously I was going to ask you next how your relationship is with Cleveland, but you've just covered that off. But obviously in terms of, I know you said we're perhaps not the cheapest. Is it therefore, would you feel that the service we offer additional to getting the containers, like our Box Plus solutions, that helped you? Yeah,
well, you have. Helped us. You put us in contact with almost the future of what we're going to look at in terms of using a company called Stora to do our website, do the automation of the business. Yeah, which is where we want to go. And you guys have given us advice on locks, the right information about getting the right locks. Yeah, and where to put them. So it's worked out great for us. Yeah, that's good to hear. How do you find generally the self-storage industry? I know you said, you alluded to earlier that you were surprised, obviously, what it was like. But as a whole, how do you find it? It has been a surprise how big this market is. I think it's one that is growing in this country. So far, so good. Yeah. Is all I'd say about it at the moment. Yeah. So how does it compare then, managing and running a self-store business compared to the other side of the business? At the moment, it's managing the self-storage is a lot easier. First and foremost, because it's a lot smaller. Yeah. So it does take up a lot less of my time. But I think self-storage by its very nature is going to be easier to run. You don't need to employ anywhere near the number of people. And there's not as much customer interactions going on. Yeah. And where we are, there's less competition. So we're in the waste business. We've got to be on it the whole time, seeing what we're up to, how we're getting on with our customers. Are we doing everything we should be doing? With growth, I'm sure will come challenges. Yeah. So we shall see as we go forward. And how profitable has the business been in terms of operational costs versus return? The quick answer, it's been quite good. Yeah. When we first started, again, we weren't 100% sure, what all the costs were going to be. Now we've got, our first location pretty much 80 to 90% full. Okay. We've had a good look and analysed the costs that are involved from buying the containers to advertising. And it does look like it does make good returns. We think it's making about a 30% net return. Right. After all costs. So, yeah, we're very happy with it. Yeah. But it's now, we've got the 3 facilities. Where do we go with this? And what does the future hold? Because we think we can grow. Yeah. It's a growing market. So that would be our plan, to get out there and get some more sites and see how that goes. Well, that was my next question. Again, you've already covered that off, Tim. My bad. It was going to be, so what are your plans for the future? So obviously your expansion. Yeah, that would be the plan. We're currently looking at 2 more sites as we speak to get them up and running. Mm-hmm. And then the automation of everything. So it takes up less of my time, so we can have invoices reoccurring, so we can have people on direct debits, trying to get as much automated as possible, so it saves time, so we can concentrate then on finding the other sites and growing the business. Mm-hmm. And would the other sites that you're looking into would still be in the same area, same region? So obviously we're based down in Dorset, so probably not going to look for a facility up here at the moment. But what we've found so far, and in these sort of locations, these secondary, tertiary locations out in the country, our model works around that, so we don't have to almost compete with the big boys in towns. We've had a very simplistic look at, a few guys in the office and me that looked at a map and, pointed at a few other towns, villages in our area and had a look, checked for competitors in that area. And we think there's a good 10 locations in Dorset we could go to.
Okay.
So perhaps, in the next 2 years, if we could get to that sort of level,
brilliant,
we can then see what happens from there.
Yeah.
But that would be the sort of next goal, if it were.
Yeah. With regards to levelling up the business and getting more sites, have you any thoughts around what you're going to do in terms of marketing that will run in line with obviously that expansion?
With growth, I think we need to understand better how our budget, our spend on advertising is performing.
Yeah.
We need to look at whether we're getting, generating the leads from Google, from Facebook, from flyer drops, from the local magazines. When we understand that best, that will enable us to grow. If we can get to our customers quicker, it will enable growth.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think works best for you? What so far has kind of been the best marketing tool to generate business?
I think at the moment, believe it or not, it's flyer drops.
Really?
Yeah, the old-fashioned flyer drops with a discount on there, an offer of some sort.
Yeah.
They've seemed to work quite well, especially when they're opening the place. But once they're up and running, it's leads that come through our website.
Yeah.
And that we actively chase. So
what advice would you give to someone who is just about to embark on the self-storage business?
Well, for me personally, I wish I'd started it sooner. Because actually, when I first inquired about prices, they were a lot cheaper. And then when we first opened after COVID,
yes,
prices, like for everything, they're a lot higher. So personally, for me, if I could turn back a clock, I'd have started earlier.
So buy lots while the price is good.
Yeah, which it seems
now.
To be back to that sort of pre-COVID prices now. My advice, following on from what I just said, actually, if you believe in it, you should go for it. This industry I feel, is in its infancy. And there's a lot of growth there. I think with housing going forward, for example, the houses are getting smaller. There's more flats. There's less and less storage area. And we as people are collecting more and more stuff, should we say, that we usually store in lofts or in garages. And if you've got those, you've got to put them somewhere else. So,
and I suppose it applies not just people moving houses, but also businesses as well who want to store service getting premises.
Yeah, exactly that.
Well, so thank you very much for joining us on Chatterbox today, Tim.
It's okay.
It's been a pleasure to meet with you. Finally put a face to a name. Yeah. So, and yes, we'll look forward to continuing growing the relationship as you grow your business.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here.
It's a pleasure.
Chatterbox was brought to you by Cleveland Containers, the UK's leading supplier of new and used shipping containers and the largest supplier to the container self-storage market. If you're looking to enter the self-storage industry or streamline and expand your current site, talk to us about Box Plus, our one-stop service that can provide you with everything you need to set up and run a simple, remotely operated and profitable self-storage business. For more information, head to clevelandcontainers.co.uk and follow us on social media for more content on all things shipping containers and self-storage.